Hello and welcome back to another episode of Get in the Mud. I'm your host, Lacey Dean, and I'm so excited to share today's episode. Just have the biggest smile on my face and I'm filled with so much joy after connecting with Justin G. Nelson. He is an incredible creative, just a multifaceted person pursuing so many wonderful things in the world. He's also a podcaster. So his podcast, Adjusting, is all about creating this candid, safe space to explore and have conversations about mental health and well-being. Our conversation touches on the importance of joy and cultivating joy in our life, because mental health and healing work can feel so heavy and can feel like we focus on all of these negative things, when in reality, the beautiful seeds that we're planting by confronting the grief and by confronting these patterns is freedom and joy and goodness on the other side of it. We wanted to highlight the hope that is available to you by doing this work and by showing up in process where you are today. So I'm so excited to share it with you. I will say I was having a little bit of difficulty in the quality of the video. Something about the download itself, it is not the quality that I would hope it to be, so I apologize about that, but there's so much goodness in it, and I hope that you stick around despite that, and also subscribe to the channel, click the bell, like this video, and share it with somebody who needs to hear it. I really can't say enough how much that helps and supports me in getting this out into the world. I just want these conversations to be available to people and to grow this mission of getting in there and doing this dirty work together. So without further ado, let's dive into the episode. So Justin G. Nelson, welcome to Get in the Mud. I'm so excited that you're here. Thank you for being here, making the time to be here. And so for those who are not familiar with your work, you have so many different passions and things that you do. Tell us, who is Justin G. Nelson?
Justin G. Nelson is a multi-hyphenate based in Brooklyn. Moved here, it'll be 10 years, October 16th. And I moved here to pursue a career in musical theater and film. And then God was just like, "You're gonna do more than that. You're gonna do musical theater and film, but you're gonna do more." So since the pandemic, I have evolved into this multi-hyphenate lifestyle where I have Earthy and Cultured, which is my vegan wellness brand, centering around like holistic nutrition and just educating people, especially in the Black community, about veganism and not forcing it on people, but just saying it's possible. There is hope. And then I have Type J Marketing, which is my branding and marketing company. My dad did a lot of computer development when I was a child, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted to do something similar. I wanted to make things look good. So I started doing branding and marketing. And then my latest child is Adjusting Podcast, which is my mental health podcast. I started literally on my birthday, July 10th, and it was a way for me to honor the journey that I've been on with mental health and be an advocate in this community for people, especially the people group in the church with a little church hurt.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, you know
Oh,
what? Yeah.
say it louder. Say it louder. I'm still hurt.
You can have Jesus and a therapist, and
Thank you. Mental health is
yes,
important. Don't
it
pray it
is.
away. Like, talk to
Listen, we got to talk
somebody.
about that. So, like, I wanted to make this safe space to just connect with people, and now here we are connecting and adjusting.
Yes.
Yeah.
I found your podcast via just the YouTube algorithm. It
Mhm.
was requested to me, which shout out to the algorithm
Okay,
because he's
love
doing the
that.
work. But
Okay,
I immediately resonated with you and just your energy and the warmth that you have
thank
when it
you.
comes to approaching these things. Because I think it's, like you said, it's a time of adjustment to it.
Yes,
And we
yes.
have to feel safe to
Hmm.
explore it and to feel curious and to challenge. And I
Hmm.
just think that there's so many layers of healing that
Hmm.
it can be so frustrating sometimes
Yes.
to go through this process and be like, man, I thought
Hmm.
I was done with that one. Like we've been doing this, and what do you mean? There's a new layer, there's
Cycles,
more things
right, every time.
every time. So you started this recently in July.
Mhm.
What was the final push for you to actually start doing a podcast? Because that's
Lacey, to be completely honest, I was anti-podcast for a long time.
Really?
You couldn't pay me enough money to sit down and listen to a podcast. Now I'm sitting here like, are you listening to a podcast? Do you have a
You
podcast?
should.
I feel like everyone needs a podcast. Well, not everyone. Most people need
Mhm.
a podcast. But I was helping my best friend cultivate his podcast, Tea with TJ, and I was a guest on his podcast, and I was just like, okay, this is nice. I like podcasts again. And I was in therapy, and my therapist was like, you should talk about this more with more people. And I
Mm,
said, are you suggesting that I make a podcast? They said, I'm not saying you need more on your plate. I'm just saying you should talk about this with more people. So I
mhm,
took that as my push to create the podcast. And a lot of people often say, Justin, you should be in ministry. I do not
mhm,
want to be in anyone's pulpit. I am a deacon.
mhm,
I was ordained at the age of 14, but I do not feel that my ministry is in under the umbrella of a church due
right.
to a lot of the I don't want to say negative stereotypes, but just the way that it's structured. I don't think what
Mm.
I want to talk about will resonate there. So
Oh,
this is like
okay.
my ministry, and I
Yes.
enjoy it. I met you. I'm reaching other
Yes.
people, and it's a non-judgmental space, and
Mm.
people are able to just be themselves with no shame, no guilt, and just have conversations.
Yes, that's so important. I think podcasts for me, I've the statistics of group coaching or group therapy versus one-on-one, I feel
Mm-hmm.
like it's the same concept, is that people are able to come into the space
Hmm.
and to introspect and to have the time to question for themselves, but not have to have the vulnerability
Right.
of being vulnerable and sharing and opening up to things that maybe they're not ready to do yet, but they're able to hear from other people's experiences and to learn their own words for their experience through other people's experience. That was my experience with podcasts. And I literally said this yesterday. I said the exact same thing, that I know this is the vocation of my life.
Hmm.
That I know this is, I've always had the gift of gab. We love to talk. Like, we're creative people. We like to create.
Yeah.
Like, I already know I'm the same way. I have a million passions. And so it's hard to
Hmm.
be like, which one is the current
Right.
shiny, like,
Hmm.
investment that I'm pouring into? But really looking at this work, it is so, so important what we do. And I just want to commend you for that, because it's a
Thank
brave
you.
step
I
and
appreciate
it's so needed. And so I know that space of like church hurt,
it.
I
Hmm.
resonate deeply
Hmm.
with that.
Yeah.
I grew up in a very closed-minded space within the Christian church,
Hmm.
and it to this day I have a hard time not projecting onto God the things that I've learned from people. And
Hmm.
that's so important, that like we encourage every single person to seek God and not to seek people, or not
Yes.
to seek God in people.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so I just think it's easy to go down that rabbit hole and be like, well, God's this awful. No,
Hmm.
somebody was rude and somebody made you feel not welcome, and somebody treated you like you were less.
Hmm.
That was a person problem. That was
Yeah.
a people problem. That is
Yeah.
not the God that I know. The God that I know has been the polar opposite. Actually, in 2020, the first time I was completely had left the Christian faith because of a
Okay.
lot of my own experiences.
Hmm.
And then in 2020 was dabbling in like Eastern religion and learning meditation and open to other things. And at the time that was like, you can't do that, like God
Hmm.
forbid. I had a lot of pushback from everybody in my life that I grew up with,
Hmm.
and felt like exiled because I
Hmm.
was questioning and I was hurt. And so it wasn't until during the whole movement of Black Lives Matter,
Hmm.
I couldn't understand how people were focusing on the politics or the money or organizations. I just saw a mother grieving her child that was murdered.
Right.
I saw people. And I went, why are we reading the same thing?
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
have I have no doubt in my mind that Jesus cares about the people and
Hmm.
not about like, that this is about people and about the heart. And then I so clearly heard God say in my heart that you're just seeing Pharisees, and there's always been a lot of them. And
Yeah.
so a lot of what I thought the church was
Hmm.
that aspect of the church. So I just say all of that because I deeply resonate with that. But I know a lot of people have deep, deep, deep church hurt and a lot of
No.
pain.
But even before we move on, but like I too,
Mhm.
during the pandemic, and like even before when I started doing Akashic record reads and
Mhm.
tarot, a lot of people just like, are you
What you
sure?
doing?
Like you're a Christian. Like Christians don't do that. And I'm just like, but I do. And God is okay with it.
Mhm.
And another thing I've noticed, even as of lately, is that a lot of people use the Bible or the pulpit or church to project their
Mhm.
insecurities or their interpretation based off what they want for their life, not what the Bible is saying. And
Mhm.
so I just don't like the concept of weaponized Christianity at times. And
Right.
that is becoming an issue with the church. Now we can move on.
I know. I'm like, I don't want to change it. Don't get me started. We'll change the topic.
Okay, we can move
No,
on.
but
Yes.
we can move on. Okay, and scene. No, I totally deeply feel that, and I just think that it's important that we heal in every way
Yes.
because whether we know it or not, we are projecting stuff and we're bleeding
Uh-huh.
out, and we do that in the name of God. We do that in the name of the business. We do that in
Hmm.
whatever, you know.
Yes.
So speaking of healing, we're talking today about the concept of the joy that comes from healing and
Yes.
why we should heal,
Hmm.
because so much of this work is so hard
Yes.
and
It,
it is full of grief
yes.
and a lot of depth and feeling, but we wanted to highlight just the opposite side of that polarity of why this is worth it
Hmm.
because it's so easy to get lost in that weight. So I'm curious for you, what has made this work worth it for you? What have you
You
gone through?
know, it's so easy to focus on what goes wrong. It's so easy
Mm,
to focus on the mess ups and the losses or the setbacks, but you reaching out to me, other people reaching out to me, comments from people I don't know, that is what keeps me going. The spiritual confirmations I receive to let me know that what I'm doing is in alignment with what God wants me to do makes me feel great. And so I've had to really rewire my concept of joy when it comes to finding joy within a space, mental health, because so many people focus on anxiety, depression, imposter syndrome, like all those negative things, but no one talks about joy. Joy is a subset of mental health because we saw
right.
Inside Out too. You know, joy was. I could talk about that movie
I
forever.
love that.
But joy it's like the root of a lot of things. And I
Yeah.
just want people to tap into more of their joy,
Mm.
especially with like where I am in therapy with healing my inner child. I'm always looking at people, I'm just like,
Are you having fun?
right, okay?
Are we having fun?
Like, what are you doing today to honor your inner child? Let's talk about that because
Mm,
once you tap into that, that joy is just like, you know what? I'm gonna go for a walk. Do it.
yeah.
Do it. Do it alone if you have to. But like
Hmm.
that to me, even this conversation is just bringing me joy. Just knowing
Right.
that there are people out there that want to heal and don't
Mm,
want to live in their the generational trauma. Because I'm still
right.
reading the book. It didn't start with you,
It's
and
good.
it's so heavy, but so good and so
Yeah.
necessary. And it's nothing in the book that isn't relevant now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's something that's so crucial.
Hmm.
I didn't know how to access certain parts of me because I was just in survival mode and
Hmm.
having to learn about the nervous system.
Hmm.
That joy, Brene Brown says that joy is actually the most threatening and the scariest emotion that we will ever feel because there's so much possibility within it and the unknown is within it and we can lose so much. So if we are still in that mindset, then the joy feels like a threat when you've survived and when
Hmm.
you've gone through those negative loops and you're stuck within those negative loops. And that's exactly what it is their belief systems, their
Right.
loops, their things that I know for me, I identified with. I thought that's who I was.
Yeah.
When in reality, those were decisions that I made because of patterns that I had witnessed and cycles. And like you said, that book, it doesn't start with you. It's not just about you being this like
Mhm.
anomaly that's broken and that somehow there's so many moving pieces that go
Mhm.
into why we are the people that we are, but
Yes.
how to reconnect to that inner child again, how to
Mhm.
actually feel our feelings
Yeah.
and not intellectualize them or
Feel the feelings. Yes. Yes.
like
Yes.
feel the actual sensational
Mhm.
experience. And unfortunately, I know for me, in order to learn how to do that and to access joy, I also had to grieve. And I
Yes.
think that that's the thing that we so want to avoid
Hmm.
in all of life. If you look at like what are all of our coping strategies trying to do to avoid pain,
Hmm.
to seek pleasure,
Hmm.
we want fun, we want all of the things without the weight, without the
Yes.
groundedness, without the opposite polar that needs to exist to
Mhm.
appreciate it, you know? So it's like having the balance of recognizing how to deal with pain, how to deal with the nervous system, how to create space to then cultivate that joy,
Hmm.
to cultivate, like it's a practice. And
Hmm.
I know I have to actively choose joy.
Hmm.
It's a value of mine. I don't want to be around people that don't feel like sunshine. Like I don't want that's my mission statement in life. Like I want people that feel like sunshine.
It's funny. I recently, oh wait, no, I did. Today's the, okay. So I celebrated my 10-year anniversary and I don't know why I said next week, but I've celebrated it and posting it and getting so much like affirming energy from people. It brought me to tears. Like I took
Mhm.
myself out to eat, and I had so many people say, you're doing a great job. I've been watching you from the sidelines. You're doing it. You're killing it. Like there's so much coming for you. And I'm still like, where did you come from? Who sent you? Who was
Who
responsible?
is the messenger? Who is your
Right, and I'm just like, wow, like thank you for acknowledging that because some people, everyone don't get their flowers, and so I just wanted to like bring that up because it's important to, give people their flowers. But
Right.
also, I was just the other day, I was just like, I have got to really reevaluate friendships. I
Totally.
need to be around people who reflect the healing that I'm doing and
Mm,
the can mirror where I'm headed because it's
right.
it's one thing to be that anchor in a friendship. And I posted this on Facebook. Strong friends take time for you. Like I have been a strong friend since I was 8 years old, okay? And I get tired. But
I
I
think
was
people do.
okay, And so I was walking through the park the other day and I wanted to make this a nice post, but I was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna talk about it here. And I said that a lot of people suffer in silence
Mhm.
because other people are just too loud. And people will not like silence themselves for other people to be heard. And
Mm,
that's why people just say, I would rather just suffer because, like, not saying you're loud in your response, but you just talk too much or you don't know how to
right.
listen. And so
Hmm.
it's like, we need more healthy friendships.
Yes.
Everyone doesn't need a relationship. We need healthy friendships.
Right. And that's so many people seek romantic relationship. I
Yes.
know everything you are saying, I both feel seen and attacked at the same
Yeah.
time because I have the gift of gab. And for
Uh-huh.
the growing up in my insecurity, I
Mm,
was so terrified of
mm,
being seen because I
mhm,
had this internal belief with like my narcissistic dad that there was a monster inside of me that was ready to come
mhm,
out and I was hiding it. I was masking ADHD. I didn't realize any of that. And so I had this belief about myself that my humanity was this huge defect that nobody could ever see and I couldn't ever feel own, like vulnerable and open about the struggles that I had because
mhm,
they were inherently wrong to struggle. You're not supposed to have needs. You're not supposed to struggle. You're not supposed to feel. And so I didn't know how to hold other people's feelings yet because I felt threatened and I
mhm,
didn't even know it. It was so subtle that fixing mode that we go
mhm,
into
mhm.
or that like advice mode instead of empathizing. What is
Yes.
the difference between sympathizing and empathizing? And
Mhm,
sympathy is that taking on and that like codependent nature, that everything that's so easy to do. And it's
mhm.
often from good intentions. It's
Right.
not malicious. It's that it's a skill.
Mhm.
It's so funny you say this too. I'm going to pull a shameless plug of this book, How to Talk to Anyone About Anything.
Okay.
I'll put the link in it, but it's an OG. It's so good. I'm almost done.
Okay.
Um, incredible about imago dialogue, which is
Okay.
basically the process of how to create safe conversations and
Mm,
safe dialogue. And
okay.
so, how do we both speak in a way that is safe and inviting, and how do we create the space to actually listen and hear? And the way that they break it down is that you have to create a space where, let's say you're going through conflict, but this is just true in general, is acknowledging the other person has a right to their space. Hey, do you have a minute to talk about something that's really important to me? And inviting them in so that they have an understanding of this is what we're focusing on.
Hmm.
And then allowing them to go through the three steps as they do mirroring, basically. So you're
Okay.
mirroring back
I've heard of
and
that.
you're saying, this is what I am hearing. Am I right in this understanding? Is there anything more you want to share? Continuing asking until there's nothing else that needs to be said. And then you validate the actual experience of that person. You're saying to them that totally makes sense in
Mhm.
whatever way. And then the third step is empathizing. So then you put yourself in their shoes and you don't sympathize, you empathize. I can really imagine that was really hard for you.
Hmm.
And to feel that presence of intentional listening,
Hmm.
nobody has that. Really. Nobody really has that. And when you can create that space, I know that that's like a life mission of mine
Hmm.
is to be a good listener because I sucked at listening for so long. And I was so insecure and I wanted to hide all of the things, so I distracted and I made myself look good and I did all these other things, or I was extroverted and a chameleon and who
Hmm.
do I need to be today to be loved, when in reality it was like, can I sit in the comfort of, or the discomfort of silence?
Yeah.
Can I sit with somebody when they're falling apart and know that there's nothing I need to do? I am not responsible for them or their healing. I'm
Hmm.
not responsible, and really separating that line, that gives agency and that gives so much space
Hmm.
for intimacy to happen. And I know that that's rare. I was having this
It's
exact
so,
conversation yesterday,
yes.
like that I'm feeling called, like I shouldn't say this yet because I'm going to make it happen. I know it's already going to exist in the universe. I feel
Well,
it.
it's
But
manifested here.
I
Hmm.
know, here we go. I literally was talking about the fact that with a friend of mine who's also a coach, that we were seeking people that are doing this work, that are really invested in creating this safety in this space together, but that just need community, that need people that are like-minded. Like,
Hmm.
where do you find these people? Unless you are in these spaces, but a lot of
Right.
these spaces don't really exist for the people that are doing this work or
Hmm.
the people that truly are invested in this. So it's like you
Hmm.
meet people here and there, but sometimes like my value system and what I desire in my life is very different than like 95% of my friends. And it's not because that's anything wrong with what they're
Right.
choosing. It's just different. And I need to know that I can meet people that are within the space that I'm in that can have an understanding and hold that space because I need it. I can't give when I don't feel also that I have a safe space to fall apart and a space to grow together. And so we were talking about, I was like, man, am I gonna have to make this now? Like, it doesn't exist. Somebody needs to do it. Ah,
But
and I'll do
someone
it.
said the very thing you're looking for is waiting for you to create it. And I was just like, can you be any louder? Like, I don't know. But even my best friend, I went to a mental health conference. I've been going to so many mental health conferences and workshops. You would think I went to school for this. And she was saying, adjusting might be more than a podcast. And I was just like, I just started. Okay, give me like another year before you drop more on me. And now I'm already planning like the next 5 years. And I'm
Yeah.
just like, okay,
But it's beautiful when that's exciting. I was
yes,
saying yesterday how like I'm scared of
listen.
success, because I know it's possible now,
Mhm.
and it's more of it, I'm adjusting to
Ah,
success. I'm
yes.
adjusting to the reality of like challenging those fears and beliefs around money and the fact that my brain is an asset and I
Hmm.
can help people deeply by just creating that space and by challenging and finding the narratives and doing the things. But it's challenging my own. And so it's really looking at this work and saying, again, going back, it's joyful. It
Hmm.
brings us joy. It fills my heart. Is it a ton of work? Yeah. The
Absolutely.
ADHD part of my brain is like, I don't want to do administrative, like my prefrontal cortex is like on fire all the time, but we're doing it because I love
Overtime.
this. And
Yes.
it's that when you can find the joy and the purpose and you can
Mhm.
find and so few people have that joy because they're not in purpose. So it's like the whole point of this work is to come back to that inner child and say,
Yes.
what do you actually like? Like, why do we heal? Why do we do any of
Yep.
this? It's because you have this self, this real part of you that you feel and you
Mhm.
know that it's there and you know when you're choosing things that are making it waste away, it
Mhm.
never fully goes away, but we
Right.
numb it and we cope out of it and we avoid it and we hide and we defend. And in reality, it's a kid that needs a parent. It's
Yes.
that's just in general the space to be curious about those parts of us. Like that's what this work is
Mhm.
to not perpetuate this pathological, this is what I have, therefore this is what I am.
Mhm.
No, you've gone through things that make you struggle with anxiety and depression and whatever. And yes, there are real reality in the
Yes.
body and there
Mhm.
are tools and things that are hugely beneficial. But the goal of healing is not that we never go through hard things again, not that we never experience negative emotion and
Right.
live in this toxic positivity or
Mm.
bypassing way of doing life. It's that we
Mhm.
can cultivate joy
Yes.
and that we can ground in the grief, that
Mhm.
we can find joy in it somehow, like, and we can find connection back to self. That's the
Yeah.
whole point,
And we can get to a point where we can grow in grace and
Mm,
realize that if something does pop back up, you have the tools to know how to manage it. And like
right,
I was listening to a podcast and they said there's really no true end destination with healing or in getting in
right.
alignment because there will always be something to shake you up. Like even with the earth, like things are going fine now, tornado,
Right.
earthquakes, something will come to shake it up, but it's how
Right.
you adjust to those shakeups that make your healing meaningful and it
Yeah.
makes joy and grace have more of a purpose in your being.
Right. That's so good. Oh, it's how do we handle? Like, how do
Yeah.
we? So much of this is just skills. Like,
Yeah.
really, it's just practice.
Yep.
One of my favorite lines is, I've been a nanny for 13 years, so I've worked with kids. I've worked with hundreds of kids and families, and just over, short-term care positions and working with an agency, doing different types of jobs, also with just kids in general. And you see how these things happen
Hmm.
when you see the family structure. You see
Mm.
how these moments of shaming just break away this little person and how we get to build that up and we
Yes.
get to speak life into
Hmm.
kids. And when we do that, we're building this foundation. But the same thing happens when we use our words and our presence and our
Yes.
actions to speak life into adults, like you
Yeah.
said, speak
Hmm.
life into the reasons why any of this matters,
Right.
right? Like you matter because you're here.
Hmm.
You matter because you will impact things. You
Hmm.
have your words matter, your actions matter, all of these things matter. So, are we going to continue perpetuating these cycles?
Hmm.
Are we going to learn how to do things better so that we're not every time something happens, it takes us 3 years and new layer of trauma to like work
Right.
through it
Hmm.
versus learning to communicate and set the boundary or doing the thing. And yeah, maybe we dabbled back and but it's always going to be 5 steps forward, 3 steps back, seven
Hmm.
steps forward, 2 steps back. Like it's just always going to look like that.
Yes.
But one of the lines I say all the time is it's your first time here. Like
Hmm.
it is my first time here with you today recording this podcast.
Hmm.
I've done very similar things in the past, but it is my first time with the knowledge and awareness and the energy level and everything that I have today
Hmm.
to have this conversation. It's my first time being in this place in my business. It's my first time navigating new levels of the same friendships and new. It's our first time, just like it's
First
kids'
time.
first time learning how to walk. And
Hmm.
when you hear somebody say, like, okay, how long does it take for a kid to walk? The reaction is often, well, as long as it takes, right? Like you can't say how long it's going to take. Some kids faster than others.
Right.
Some kids fall down more. Some kids are scared. Some kids just go for it. They're running before they're even walking. How long does it take is as long as it takes.
Mm-hmm.
And that there's no timeline on that. But the same thing goes for us. Like
Yes.
it's going to happen eventually.
Mm-hmm.
There is no such thing as like this. Now I never struggle in the world and life is butterflies. And what world are we in? Like we
Let
have
me
to
know.
have radical acceptance,
Right.
radical truth in the sense that it's both, and it always will be. It always will be, just like it's going to be heavy at times.
Mm-hmm.
And you also, it's not a bad thing that you still feel joy when you're grieving and that you can
Yes.
still find those moments of just appreciation and gratitude, and that we need both because we
Mm-hmm.
get lost in it. And we can get lost in the fluff too. Like we can
And
get lost in the
yeah.
light if we're not willing to ground it, and it doesn't always have to be pain, it doesn't always have to be
Mm-hmm.
grief, but like giving ourselves the grace to
Yes.
say it's our first time here.
I'm
Like how do you think you know everything? That's wild. You're not supposed to know everything. Sit down. That's how we learn. We need
absolutely.
to learn through failure a lot
Yes.
of times. And failure doesn't even exist because your job is just to be you.
Yep.
So what does that even mean? I don't know what that means. So what do you think people that or what if you were in this place, because I know I was used to struggle with this. What would you tell somebody who is scared of healing or scared of like the joy that comes in the sense that they don't trust that it's actually going to come?
I think it's more so of people are afraid sometimes to heal because they have made trauma their identity and they
Mm,
don't want to go out of their place of comfort. But telling people there is more of this joy that you somewhat feel on the other side. There is
mm,
there is a relief, and you can once you release this trauma or whatever it is you feel that is robbing you of the joy, like once you like shrink that and make more room for joy, you'll realize that that never really mattered. So I
mm.
find that a lot of people, myself included, because I was again anti-podcast, I was anti-therapist too for a while. I'm like, I'm not crazy. Oh, how dare you tell me I need a therapist? Now I'm like, why didn't I start therapy sooner? Like,
Mhm.
I'm sorry, everyone needs
Everybody.
there at least a good 6 sessions to realize just like, okay, these are things I need to work on. These are things that I have made my personality or my identity that is, that was a trauma
Mhm.
response, that was a coping mechanism. That's not who I am.
Right.
So I think people, once they tap into who they want to become, what legacy they want to live, what
Mm.
finding their purpose. That was like the fourth session into my therapy session. My therapist said, "So what's your purpose in life?" Fourth session in, sir, this is too heavy, too quick. But they push back. It's like, I feel that you have the tools in you. We're going to figure that out. And I say,
Right.
okay, I think my purpose now is to help other people find joy, to help other people discover what healing looks like and feels like. So I don't know, it's just constantly reminding people that darkness is temporary and joy,
Mm.
you can have more light if you have more joy, and helping them find ways to get to that because the
Right.
road is different for everybody.
Right. And sometimes joy can just be a hobby. It can
Yes,
be something you love that you
a
don't
small outlet.
monetize.
Mm-hmm.
Like joy can be something you
Thank
love that
you.
you don't have to be the best at. You
Thank
don't
you.
have to be the best. Do you like to paint because it's fun?
Yes.
Do that. Just do it for you. I took myself on a solo date to go see an artist that I've been obsessed with, and I didn't have anybody to go with, and I was like, we're gonna go. We're just gonna have a date. We're gonna get cute. We're gonna do the thing. And there was one point when I was just listening to this band, and I just started tearing up. I just started
Mm.
crying because it was such a beautiful moment that I got to create for me and for me alone. And it was just so joyful and so beautiful and just felt like my inner child was like, this
Yeah.
is the greatest thing
Mhm.
ever. And it was for me. And so it's like, what are the things that I actually like?
Right.
Especially when you've gone through abuse or trauma or
Hmm.
things that have disconnected you, where you've had to be something else for somebody else, or your internal reality was dependent on an external person telling you
Yes.
what that reality was, or
Hmm.
if that was allowed to have that perception. You have to learn yourself, just like
Hmm.
you learn another person. So, all of these things about safe dialogue, all of these things, we have to do that internally.
Right.
So I need to make space to actually say, what do you even like?
Right.
What do
Right.
you like to do? What feels
Mhm.
good to you? Now, every time I do something new, I make it a point that I try to do something new every month, one thing just for me. Where it can be a concert, it can be something super simple, it can be trying a new place to eat, just something new and going, what do you think about that?
Right.
Because I didn't know, I couldn't tell you my favorite color for a time in my life. I was so broken down. I
Hmm.
didn't know who I was. So, how in the world am I going to come into my life with a sense of purpose and a sense of, I didn't even know what I liked to eat. So it's like I had to figure that out, where we have the space to, yes, improve and do this work, but
Right.
also, who are you today?
Hmm.
Who do you want to be for
Hmm.
you that feels good to you? What does joy feel like to you?
Hmm.
I don't know. I'm curious. What does joy feel like to you?
Joy to me feels like a stack of fluffy pancakes with crispy edges.
Oh,
Okay. It just feels
mm,
safe. Joy
mm-hmm,
feels like a brisk morning and a cold brew. Like joy feels like comfort. Joy
mm-hmm.
feels like what's the I think it's a Mean Girls reference or something. No, miscongeniality, where it's just like a perfect day outside is
No,
70 degrees.
April
That whole
25th.
thing. Yeah, it's like that. That's joy to me. Joy is good music. Joy is things that make my nervous system feel good.
Mhm.
Um, if I had to put a color to joy, I would probably say like a soft blue. I don't know. To
Mm.
me, that feels good. Um, Joy is trust. Joy is safety. Joy is freedom. Like those are things when I think of joy, like that's what comes up for me.
I love that. That's so great.
Yeah.
When you said the pancakes, and I was like, and
Oh,
that good nap that comes afterwards when you're a little dozing off because you in the itis.
the itis.
Yes.
Oh, just
Oh,
nothing like
the
it. But I did
safety
have
of the
some.
itis.
I had some bad pancakes recently, and I was not enjoy. I was upset. Okay,
That
I
was
was just
no
like, who
joy.
made these? Who made these? Fire them now. They were buckwheat
Mm.
flour
Mm.
pancakes.
I
Right.
love that, but also no. Why?
Not for me. Never again.
Yeah,
Once
buckwheat noodles are good, but yeah,
they're good,
pancakes,
but the
that's
pancakes,
pushing it.
no. Mm-mm.
That's pushing it. That's pushing it. I feel like so much of them pancakes are texture, so like
Right.
why are we
Yeah.
doing that? You know? I don't
Sawdust.
trust it. So if you could leave our listeners with one thing about whether just in general, it doesn't have to be related to what we are talking about, but just one thing you wish that they could know in this place or just where you are, something that you're learning that you feel like would be something worth sharing, what would that be?
As of today, it is okay to outgrow people,
Mm,
places, and things. It's like the Marie Kondo of mental health. Thank you for what you've done, what the purpose you've given to this part of my life. I release you. No hard feelings, no hard
right.
feelings at all. But thank you. But you have to keep yourself first. You have to
Mm,
remember your purpose, your goal, and if person, place, or thing is holding you back from experiencing joy, they gotta
it's
go.
too expensive.
Life is
Yeah.
too short. Life is too
Yeah.
short to be robbed of joy. So
Yes.
that's my
I
nugget.
love that. I love that nugget of wisdom. And that's so true. It's so true. It is, we don't think that that is what's happening until we look back, but we can look at it in the process, in the
Mhm.
moment, listening to our intuition, tuning into our body, saying, how do I feel after that conversation, after this?
Mhm.
There's been times where I'm like, I love this person, but
Yeah.
and it's okay. That's okay. I think that's the permission that so many people need is like you have
Yes.
permission to be you in the world. You can
Mhm.
be loving doing that. You can have loving endings and ruptures in that way too. and you're actually releasing them. In
Mm.
some ways, like you can be a catalyst for them too, to look at their own stuff in that hard conversation.
Yeah.
There's such a deep sense of intimacy that comes when we're willing to do the hard thing for ourselves.
Hmm.
And when we build that relationship of trust, um, actually, I don't want to like totally divert and not actually end this podcast. I'll keep you forever. But I went through a breakup this last year, and he was going through some mental health things, and it was really hard for me to not just jump into codependent role.
Yeah.
Brought up a lot of my stuff.
Hmm.
Let me push all of my needs aside so that I can be, because you're going through crisis mode, you know, just the reality of wanting to be a loving person to somebody who was going through things that
Hmm.
were out of his control in a lot of
Right.
ways. And so we did decide to end the relationship. And I had done a meditation where I got this vision of my inner child.
Mm.
And I have this picture on my background. That's me as a kid. You can't see it.
Hey. Hmm.
But it's like little cheeky, smiley, just joyful with the vows that I wrote to myself. And it was that age, but she was like bones. She was so skinny.
Hmm.
And I just had this awareness of like, I haven't cared for you. I've forgotten to feed you. I've forgotten to be with you. I've completely not looked at you. And in that rupture, there was a lot of just like anxiety. I didn't know if things were really going to end, you know. And
Hmm.
then ended up seeing some stuff on social media, like far after that was related to our breakup. And it just went, I can't do this. It's
Right.
torturing my heart.
Yes.
And it was so hard for me because I wanted to see it and I had this hope and it was kind of being fed into because there were
Hmm.
posts about our relationship and how good things were. And it just was like, I can't do this for you.
Right.
I have
Mhm.
to set this boundary for her.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so I ended up blocking, and that was hard for me because again, it was no like I wish nothing but love, but I had to do it because
Hmm.
I couldn't keep wanting that desire to go look or wanting to, I needed to say this is what it is and put it aside. And so I ended up blocking on social media and just creating that space for me, and immediately felt this sense of relief and was on a walk and had this vision where I was feeding her chicken soup, and she had a blanket around her shoulders and
Mm.
she was a little fuller. And
Okay.
it was just that same, like, that was me saying, I see your hunger.
Hmm.
I see what you need. I'm so sorry I wasn't there for you.
Hmm.
And I didn't even realize it. But
Yeah.
I am now, and I hear you, and your pain matters to me, and what you love matters to me, and your heart matters to me. And I'm gonna be loving and tender and give you a blanket and some chicken soup,
Hmm.
right? Like doing this work and having those boundaries and doing it lets us experience that level of relationship with ourselves so that we can access all of the good, yummy
Yes.
things as well on the other side. And that's the permission that you have, that you can do that and you can do it in a way that is loving. It doesn't have to be harsh, it can be tactful, but how do we honor those lines for us so that we don't have to feel like we're slaves to relationships or things just because we've been in them
Hmm.
because of life and experiences and all of that. But it's been so fun to chat with you,
Same
Justin.
here.
Thank you for making the time, and hopefully it's not the last. We'll have you
It
on
won't.
again.
It will not be.
Um, but thank you so much for being here, and I just wish you all of the success in the whole wide world and everything that you're doing. And I know you're gonna
No.
continue impacting the world because you've already impacted mine. So,
Hey,
hey.
thank you.
If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to check out this video, and I'll see you in the next one.